Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Vaughan and this is History Workshops. Today we're asking the question, would one of these protect you in the First World War? It is a classic image of the British and Commonwealth soldier on the Western Front during the Great War. A Tommy with a steel helmet. Yet the British, like all the other fighting powers at the beginning of the war, sent their men off to fight with little or no head protection. Germany, France, Serbia, Austria-Hungary and Britain sent their armies off with either felt, leather or cloth headgear. The British in particular had learned many lessons from the Boer War, as did the French and Germans in the Franco-Prussian War, yet better head protection for their soldiers was not one of them. The First World War as an industrial war would soon show that men needed better protection from flying bullets, airborne shrapnel and razor-sharp shell fragments. During 1915, all the major combatants had produced and tested some form of protective headgear. The French introduced the Adrian helmet, like this one here, based on the helmet worn by their own firemen. This two-piece design formed a crest line running the length of the helmet, was seen as both too flimsy and expensive to manufacture by the British. They may have had a point, as the Adrian took 70 individual complex operations to produce. The option the British would finally decide on would be pressed from a single piece of steel. In 1915, the British agreed on a design put forward by one John Leopold Brodie, a man who worked in the Army and Navy stores. Brodie's design was soon described as a masterpiece of simple design. Like many designs throughout history, it took inspiration from the past. Its design can be clearly seen as a throwback to the medieval kettle hat, like this one here. The name of this new piece of equipment was given the official title of Helmet, Steel, Mark I, or Brodie's Steel Helmet, War Office Pattern. However, like many things issued to the armed forces, it soon gained nicknames. It was called the Shrapnel Helmet, the Battle Bowler, Tommy Helmet, Tin Hat, US Doughboy Helmet, Dishpan, Tin Pan Helmet, Wash Basin and the Kelly Helmet. The early paint scheme was introduced for the Western Front, which consisted of a blue, mottled, light green and orange, or just given one coat of green, like this one here. But with the distinctive hard outline of the helmet and its reflective paint scheme, the helmet stood out like a sore thumb. New paint schemes were introduced, such as a khaki textured paint, and some were even painted with sawdust or sand in the paint. To break up the helmet's outline even more and reduce glare, soldiers would attach an outside sack cover made of hessian. Now you'd think that the introduction of the helmet would have been a popular move, but initially no. To begin with, the helmet was just more weight for the soldier to carry. An average Brody was about 1 kilogram in weight. Officers also feared that men wearing helmets would actually make the men go soft. When the helmet was first worn by men crowded in trenches who had to jostle and squeeze past each other, it did cause many injuries due to the sharp edges catching men in the face. There were critics from headquarters as well, including General Plumer, who said that the helmet was too shallow, too light reflective, its rim was too sharp, and its lining was too slippery. Soon, a rolled rim was added to the design to avoid men being gouged by their comrades' headgear. Unfortunately, the rollout of the helmet also added another strain on British war industry. With the shell scandal still reverberating through British newspapers, British war manufacturing was still struggling to keep up with the constant demand of supplies, arms and ammunition. But by the end of the conflict, however, an amazing 7.5 million helmets had been produced. Yet by the spring of 1916, the British forces still did not have enough helmets to go round. To begin with, a regiment of perhaps 2,000 men would only receive 50 helmets. Helmets had to be designated as trench stores, meaning when men came out of the line, they would leave their helmets for the relieving units to put on. The first action in which the Brodie was worn by all ranks was the Battle of St. Eloi. Eventually, more and more units were equipped and more men had better head protection. So you may assume then that head wounds actually went down. Well, no. After the introduction of Brodie helmets, there was actually a sharp increase in head wounds suffered by the British Army. For a while, this puzzled the High Command. Why would there be more head wounds? Were men being more foolhardy now they had helmets on? Were they putting their head above the parapet, believing themselves totally protected when they had a helmet on? The reality, of course, is simple. The men who were suffering head wounds with helmets on would probably have been killed if they were wearing soft caps, as they had done at the start of the war. Therefore, a rise in head wounds showed that they were in part effective and potentially saving a lot of lives. And the Brodie's future? It continued service with the British and Commonwealth forces throughout the interwar period and the Second World War. It began to be phased out in 1944 as the Mark III turtle helmet became available, which offered more protection to the neck and sides of the head. But it did do sterling service with other organisations throughout the Second World War and was used extensively in civil roles such as the police, fire brigade and air wardens. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more on the First World War, please hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot. Thanks for watching.